All right, let me know when we need to get started.
Just picked up an echo on your mic. All right. I think we're up.
Still an echo? Good. Apologize for that. I should know better. Done a few of these. All right, everyone, welcome. Glad to hear everything's going well for the last couple days, and enjoyed getting to hear Brandon's talk just before ours. So now we're going to talk about, in the spirit of on-chain giving, in the spirit of what we've been talking about related to Bitcoin and crypto and such. We are going to talk about upping your game, and this is where we discuss what you can do, or whether you are an advisor to clients, whether you are that individual that wants to donate somehow, what you can do in terms of planning to give, planning to make donations, what the thought process is, and then how you can do, and what we're seeing, especially what Matt's seeing for a little bit of advanced planning for those that are, excuse me, for those that are, wanting to plan for what's coming next. And a lot of that that comes from that ethos of crypto. We've been talking a lot in the last few days about those that have invested in crypto and those that have invested in Bitcoin. And a lot of the ethos around that goes to, I want the world to be different. I want the world to be better. And having that mindset to be able to invest in it and keep with it actually, I think, changes. And Matt can, will hopefully agree with me. We talk a lot. So hopefully, I kind of know what you're thinking on this, but that kind of ethos that has moved people into investing in Bitcoin or crypto, or even that's how they've derived almost all of their wealth, kind of changes their thoughts around all of their advanced planning and their thoughts around how, when, how much, why they want to be able to give, or why they want to make the world a little bit better place than I guess when they started. So with that, we will get started and tell you a little bit about who we are first, and why we get to sit here in front of you and talk for about an hour. So my name's Adam Blumberg. I used to have an RIA. I used to be a CFP, certified financial planner. Sold my practice that I had with a partner in 2020 so that I could concentrate on the company we started called Interaxis, which was really there to teach financial advisors mainly about Bitcoin and about crypto and about how to invest, just about how they can incorporate it into their practice. And last year, well, I'll say this: I met Matt at, what was it, Matt? Both of our first ever crypto conference back in 2018 here in Denver, Colorado, the Denver Day for Crypto.
Yep, February 2018.
Yep. That was my first, that was Matt's first, and we joked that we were about the only adults in the room. And here we are still doing it. And I will let Matt take you on his journey from then to now. But the company he started along the way, Bespoke Group, I am now an associate and part of the Bespoke Group. So Matt, I'll let you take it from, Denver Day for Crypto or before that.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Adam. And Endowment, thanks for hosting us. Thanks for inviting us to be part of this. Just a quick housekeeping item as well. We do covet your questions and comments along the way. Our Twitter handles, I refuse to call it X. Our Twitter handles are on our name tags. If you want to find us on Twitter, you can follow us there. And then if you want to enter questions on or comments on the chat window, that'd be fine too. Would love to engage with you in a conversation either here or beyond. As Adam mentioned, I'm one of the two founding partners of a multifamily office called Bespoke Group, and we're accidentally a family office. We didn't set out to do that, My background and my co-founding business partner's background is as estate planning attorneys. My my background was planning for clients with ultra high net worth. So very large federally taxable estates. From a, we may get into some of the thin branches of transfer tax here, or maybe in another conversation in the future. But planning for clients with significant wealth. In November of 2017, I got introduced to a family that had about $150 million worth of Bitcoin back when that seemed like a significant amount of Bitcoin. And as you might imagine, nobody that they had come across knew how to do substantive estate planning, legal planning, structuring, trusts, gifting, whatever with Bitcoin. And, spoiler alert, neither did we. We knew how to do that with regular assets, venture capital, cash, brokerage accounts, real estate, whatever. But I mean, honestly, I don't think that we had even heard the word Bitcoin before 2017. That's, we were just, oblivious to it. But I was curious about who these people were, what this asset is. And through a series of conversations with these people, it struck me that the that it was simply unacceptable for the answer to be that nobody was going to help a family with significant wealth in this asset class that people just didn't understand. Obviously, there are oracles that show what the price is. It's tradable. It's tradable 24/7. Obviously, 365 days a year. It's probably the most liquid form of asset we've ever known. How can somebody not plan for this? And so, as we were going through the learning process, we had the discovery, kind of the realization that, once we could figure out how to substantiate the legal transfer of ownership of this digital bearer asset from a self-sovereign individual wallet, I didn't even know what that meant back then, but into some type of structure where you can demonstrate that title to those bearer assets is now held in the form of some type of trust regime. If we could figure that part out, then every bit of estate planning that we've ever done for regular assets, we can do for Bitcoin. And then for obviously the broader universe of digital assets. And so that started our journey. And a lot of my background, like Adam's background, is in education. So we started teaching other attorneys and other trust officers and accountants and other professionals what Bitcoin is and how crypto works and how you can do estate and tax oriented planning around that asset. And we just started getting more clients. And those very first Bitcoiners that we were working with said, "Hey, thanks for setting up these trusts for us, but can you help us? Can you help us manage these things now? Can you help us just run these things? Can you help us manage real estate portfolios? Can you help us facilitate banking? Because way back then, Choke Point 1.0 was a thing." And so we said, "Yeah, we'll figure that stuff out." And along the way, we accidentally became their fractional virtual family office. And I fell in love with Bitcoin specifically and kind of crypto and blockchain tech a little bit more generally. And it soon became the only thing I wanted to focus on. And so we got to the point where we had more and more ultra high net worth clients who had Bitcoin, who had Ether, who had other digital assets. They were L1 founders and Web3 entrepreneurs and whatever. And that just became who we are. It got to the point where Bespoke Group, as a family office, started to take on a critical mass of its own. And in recent months, we've now turned our full attention out of the practice of law into Bespoke Group, really as comprehensive wealth strategists, primarily serving clients with significant wealth in Bitcoin and other digital assets. And along the way, as Adam mentioned, and here's how I'll kind of land the plane. As Adam mentioned, when we're dealing with ultra high net worth clients, a couple of things are true about people like that. First of all, they need to they need tax deductions. Just to be quite blunt about it, they need tax deductions because you can't keep it all and not pay taxes. You gotta generate tax deductions some way, and because a lot of the clients that we work with didn't come from wealth. They just happened to stumble into it. And they didn't, the clients we see didn't really get into crypto for the money. They got into it because they believe it's a better way for assets to work. They believe that Bitcoin is a superior form of money. They feel like decentralized blockchains are a superior way to manage personal identity, to facilitate disintermediated transactions on the internet and among strangers. So they didn't get into it for the wealth. The wealth just kind of came along. And so a lot of these clients, in addition to needing deductions from a tax perspective, they feel a sense of responsibility, a sense of stewardship, and a desire to make the world a better place as a result of their wealth. They don't necessarily want to just dump a bunch of wealth on their spouse or their partners or on their kids or on their parents or whomever might inherit that stuff someday. They have a sense of responsibility that they perceive that goes along with that. And that gets us into a lot of charitable giving, which is obviously the subject matter of today's conversation.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. I always like hearing the background and always learn something new about it. And obviously what I've learned working with you and with Bespoke and with some of these clients is that, obviously I think a lot of charitable giving, which we'll talk about, a lot of it starts with, I need a tax deduction. But I think more than that, it's the people that have attained that level of wealth understand that they kind of have a duty to now help out whether it's the next generation, whether it's help out their own families, whether it's help out the world. Like you said, the ethos usually of why these people that have this level of wealth got into Bitcoin and got into digital assets is about this technology can change things. This technology can make the world better, and that doesn't just mean from a financial asset perspective. It's when we go back to the ethos of Bitcoin and the reason why it started, it's so that more people can participate in the financial system and do so with at less cost to them, hopefully at faster speeds, at disintermediating a little bit, taking some of the power away from those that have had it. And with that ethos goes the desire to help others out. So with that, we'll jump in and some of the topics we're going to get into, and we definitely welcome some questions if you all have questions along the way, is the different ways to give, the different ways that you can donate. And this goes from, as I put in the second part, who gives, when, and why. There are different ways that I can give, different ways that I can donate, different ways that I can use whatever wealth I have, whether that's a small amount or a large amount, to help out the world or to help out a cause that's important to me. So who does that, when, and why it is somewhat lends itself to the different ways you can do it. And we'll get into more detail. And then we'll talk a little bit, I think, about for some of these clients that we're seeing, what is some of the advanced planning they're getting into that goes along with the ethos of wanting to make sure that my wealth that I've generated goes to helping out the world. So we'll get into, if we have time, a little bit more advanced planning for those kind of the new generation of wealth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you want me to jump in on this or not, but the way we see it, charitable giving is just like an extension of estate planning. I mean, we have a lot of the same conversations in the estate planning, in the estate planning experience that we have in the philanthropy planning experience. I mean, you can certainly make outright gifts. If you have an intended beneficiary, if you want to give, for example, some money to your kids, nobody's going to stop you from just making an outright gift to your kid. Nobody's going to stop you from making just an outright gift to a charitable organization. And there are different levels of deduction that you get based off of what the assets are that you're giving and what type of charity you're giving to. Endaoment actually has a really great page on their website that kind of walks through charitable deduction limits. But I've got my little cheat sheet on my side here. You can deduct 60%. If it's a cash gift to a qualifying charity, you can deduct up to 60% of your adjusted gross income. And if you have a deduction that you can't use all of it, you give more than that amount, then you can carry forward that deduction for application in future years. You can carry that forward up to 5 years. If you're giving property, then it depends on the property. If you're giving something other than cash, the range is going to be anywhere from 20 to 50% of your AGI, adjusted gross income. depending again on what the assets are and what the and with the nature of the charity that you're giving it to. So again, just quick to the cheat sheet here: 20 to 30% of your AGI you could gift of real estate. And again, it's going to depend on the type of charity as to whether you're at the 20% threshold or the 30% threshold. Crypto is treated like a gift of stock. It's like a gift of property. The tax code is clear that barring some type of additional legislation that would come through Congress to classify it as something else, it's treated as property. So if you give appreciated crypto, just like you gave appreciated stock to a qualifying charity, you can currently deduct up to 30% of your AGI for gifts of Bitcoin, for example, or Ether, or some other digital asset that's appreciated in value. The valuation of the gift is measured at the time of the gift. So if you gift Bitcoin when Bitcoin is an all-time high, super. And then after you gift, whether it's outright or you gift to a donor advised fund or you gift to some other type of charitable vehicle, which we can discuss, the volatility then rides with the charity at that point. So the value of the gift is measured at the time of the gift. One of the questions I had in a recent conversation with Denver Bit Devs is, how many confirmations does it take on the chain before you know that the transfer is complete? And of course, there is no guidance from the IRS on this, but it would be my argument that you only need one confirmation on the chain to then measure the timestamp for the time of the gift, and then you get the valuation of the gifted asset as of that timestamp. And just like a gift to a beneficiary like your child or to some type of irrevocable trust, a gift to a charity for tax deduction purposes must be supported by a qualified appraisal. And there are some really good appraisers out there who can do qualified valuations or qualified appraisals on crypto, Bitcoin, other digital assets. So you can certainly give outright gifts. That's easy peasy, no big deal. But very often, people want to make a gift, or maybe they have incentives to make a larger gift, either for tax reasons or just for general philanthropy reasons, but they don't yet know how to whom they want to give that money. They want to get a charitable deduction for it, but they say, you know what, I don't know if I want it to go to my synagogue or my church or the botanic garden or something else. I don't know where I want it to go yet, but I want to give away this significant slice because I had a major income tax event this year. I want to generate a significant charitable deduction. Well, here comes the donor advised fund, which is it's sometimes derided as the poor man's charitable foundation. I think it's the smart person's. It's kind of the smart person's charitable foundation because they're brilliant. Endaoment has a great one. We've used Endaoment for our clients in the past. We will use it. We will use them in the future, especially when our clients are looking to gift crypto. But a donor advised fund is brilliant because it allows a donor to make a large gift in a given tax year and then just kind of wait for a while and then decide how they want to issue grants from that donor advised fund. So if they need to make a charitable deduction in 2024, but they don't really know who they want to give it to, they could open up a donor advised fund at a qualifying charity like Endaoment or through some other type of foundation that sponsors donor advised funds, and they can get the deduction for the value of the gift, again, subject to the AGI limitations that I discussed before. But then they can just kind of sit back and wait, even several years often, to then figure out, okay, now I want to give $5,000 to Special Olympics, or I want to give $10,000 to the Mountain Area Land Trust, or whatever it is. We have done this ourselves for our family. Our donor advised fund is not denominated in Bitcoin, although that's an interesting option that we'll talk about. Ours was funded with fiat. We had a significant income tax event a few years ago, and we needed a deduction. The deduction limits were higher back then when we did it, and so we put a significant, for us, a significant gift to a donor advised fund. And then what we've done every Thanksgiving since then is we sit around with our kids and their significant others, and we talk about, how do we think about this wealth? Um, who are charitable organizations that you care about, causes that you want to support or advance, and why, and in what amount? And then we just let the kids make a case for it. And then we decide as a family, and I mean, spoiler alert, everybody kind of gets their way, but it's like it's an exercise in letting the kids realize this is not your money, this is not family money, this is money that's already been given away. We now have a stewardship responsibility to give that away. To whom do we give it? And and for what purposes? Donor advised funds are beautiful and brilliant for that purpose. Um, One of the things that endowment does is allow people to, well, and let me kind of back up before I sing their praises too loudly. I mean, this you almost can't say enough good things about them. But a lot of donor advised funds, even at your places like Schwab or other financial institutions like that, Fidelity, they will let you donate crypto or Bitcoin to a donor advised fund, but they will liquidate that as soon as the gift is made, and then you get to choose between one of several pretty ordinary mutual fund type of packages to smooth out the volatility. So so your charity, your donor advised fund is not riding the volatility of crypto. Um, Endowment allows you to, I don't want to, they can certainly speak more to this, but you can donate Bitcoin or Ether or whatever it is, and they will hold that until it is later distributed. One of the things that we also have done through Bespoke Group on a scale, because the clients that we serve are mega affluent clients like the giga whales out there. Um, our clients, we've done this. We did this twice at the end of last year. Our clients wanted to establish what's called an advisor managed donor advised fund that would allow them to make significant gifts of Bitcoin. In this case, both of the clients were Bitcoiners. They wanted to give significant amounts of Bitcoin to a donor advised fund and remain long Bitcoin. Because as we were looking at the end of 2023, coming into January 9th, there was a lot of conviction that the Bitcoin ETFs were going to get approved. Lo and behold, obviously they did. There was general consensus within our house and with our clients that once the Bitcoin ETFs got approved, Bitcoin would see a significant run up in price. We also knew that the halving was scheduled to take place this spring, which of course it did, like clockwork. Therefore, we thought, Bitcoin is kind of coiled for some significant upside potentially in the next 18 to 24 months. If we put the Bitcoin into a donor advised fund that then requires you to liquidate the Bitcoin, then we're going to miss out on all the future beta on Bitcoin from the time of the gift. Because again, remember, the value of the gift is measured at the value at the time of the transaction. But in this particular case that I'm been most active with my clients, they put $15 million worth of very low basis Bitcoin into a donor advised fund that was an advisor managed fund. And my company, Bespoke Group, is the advisor that manages that through a qualified custodian. The $15 million that the clients put in that donor advised fund, they get a deduction, of course, subject to the AGI caps that we talked about. But now the Bitcoin that they gave, it was worth 15 when they gave it. That's the deduction they got. But now that has ballooned to over 22 million in this donor advised fund. Had we been forced to liquidate the Bitcoin through the donor advised fund and go into some type of lame money market or type of mutual fund environment, there's what's that, $6 or $8 million worth of beta that we would miss out on. That just means that now, because we were able to sit long Bitcoin on this donor advised fund, there's just that much more money to give away. No, the clients didn't get the extra deduction for that because the gift had already been made, but they have that much more to give to their charitable causes. And they're doing it again this year. And that's not an unusual type of situation. So Adam, where do you want to go
Right.
from there?
Well, I think Matt, and always helpful for you to break it down that way. I know I've learned quite a bit more about donor advised fund and foundations from you. But it seems like for the advisors, because today is kind of advisor day, right?
Hmm.
So for the advisors who have clients that either have appreciated stock or more, more of what we're talking about, appreciated Bitcoin or appreciated digital assets, it seems like usually, and I know this as a former advisor, you get to kind of almost the end of the year, and your clients are like, "Oh crap! Like I'm going to have to pay a lot in income taxes this year," which actually is not a bad thing, right? Because it means you made money.
Hmm.
But how do I get some deductions? And in the past, I think when donor advised funds weren't as big a deal, they weren't as prevalent. In the past, it was always, let me race to find some charity that maybe I kind of like, or maybe someone will come
Right.
sell me Girl Scout cookies or something like that, and I can give away a bunch of money. And it was usually fiat. It was usually just dollars I was giving away, and I didn't get any leverage on it. I didn't get any extra tax benefits like we see in appreciated assets, where I no longer have to pay that capital gains tax, plus I get the tax deduction. So it's kind of a double hit there. But
Yeah,
now,
yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, I'm not sure that they sell $15 million worth of Girl Scout cookies. So,
yeah,
yeah.
well, not, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've eaten $15 million worth of Girl Scout cookies in my lifetime,
I'm not
mainly
going to tell you.
Thin
I'm not going
Mints,
to
but
tell you.
I've jumped into a few others here and there. But
So
but the
you're not just a Thin Mint maximalist.
I'm not a Thin Mint Maxi. No, I'm equal opportunity for many of them. I like some sandwich cookies. I have some that I maybe throw some Nutella on sometimes. So I'm good. Like I like the shortbread. I'm definitely not a maximalist, but I'm primarily Thin Mint when it comes to Girl Scout cookies. They go well in ice cream. I got to say that.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think the growth, well, the advent and the growth of the donor advised fund, I think gives so much more flexibility. So if you do get to that point at the end of the year, oh crap, I have a lot of income taxes to pay, I have to offset this.
Mhm.
You don't have to go, all George Costanza trying to find the human fund,
Right.
right? Where you're giving away. I can give this money away. I can get my tax deduction. If you're the advisor to that client, it's okay. Let's figure out what assets we're going to give away. We're not just going to write a check from your checking account. We can actually give away some of your assets. So there's like two parts of being an advisor that helps, and then you can go look. We don't have to go find some sort of foundation or charity to give to right this minute. Let's
Hmm.
go give it to. Let's go have don't use a donor advised fund. We can give to that. You get your charitable deduction. For the year, subject to AGI limits. You don't have to pay capital gains taxes if it's appreciated, if you're one of those that has low basis Bitcoin or low basis digital assets. And then you don't have to make that decision right now. Where am I going to give it? And
Hmm.
on top of that, as you mentioned, Matt, I can still manage, especially with something like endowment, if I'm in crypto, I can still have that manage and continue to grow. So by the time I figure out where I want my money to go, as the example you gave, it could be significantly more than I started with. So yes, as you said, I don't get the benefit of that of an increase in a tax break, but I don't want to, as the advisor and as the client, like I don't want to play that game of when is the best time, when am I going to get the biggest bang for my buck. It's I'm going to give when I have to, I'm going to give when I want to, I'm going to get the tax deduction, and that money can continue to be managed and I can give it away when I want. And
Hmm.
the advent or growth of the donor advised funds, I think, helps so much, because the next step in the advanced planning is the foundation, which is a whole different level of of management and of administration, right?
Yeah, it is. And I can't remember in the slide deck if we're going to talk about a couple of different trusts as well, but I'd like to make sure that we have some time to come back
Yeah.
to a couple also. But yeah, so the foundation, there are two different broad categories of charitable foundations, and one is what's called a grant making foundation, where again, I don't have the limitations at the top of my mind yet currently, but a grant making foundation is basically where a family is effectively its own donor advised fund in a way. And so a foundation can either be structured as a corporation or it can be structured as an irrevocable charitable trust. And in a donor advised fund, the donors don't technically get to just you give the money. They make a grant. They make a grant request through the donor advised fund sponsor. Now, so in this case, it could be endowment, it could be some community foundation, it could be some other type of public foundation that offers donor advised funds. But the the donor can advise the charity to then issue grants on the donor advised fund's behalf. So in my case, for example, we've got ours through Schwab. When my family sits around the table at Thanksgiving, we say, okay, we want to give X dollars to the Betty Ford Botanic Gardens up in Vail, where you just were. Um, I can't just say, hey, I don't have control of the check account, the checkbook account. I don't, or the banking account. I can't just write the check from my from my foundation and just send it. I have to make a recommendation to, in my case, Schwab, who is my sponsor, and then their grant committee, it's very automated for them, but their grant committee says, okay, well, if this is a qualified charity, if it's one that's already on our books, then we'll issue the grants. And I think that it'd be very unusual for a donor advised fund sponsor to reject a grant. But there's a separation between the ultimate decision and the grant maker or the donor in a donor advised fund. Again, as a practical matter, donor advised fund sponsors are going to pretty much do what the donors ask. I mean, otherwise, they're not likely to get an additional contribution, but that's just kind of how that works. A grant making foundation eliminates the DAF sponsor, and the family itself gets to control that foundation. Um, there are a lot of compliance rules that go along with maintaining your own foundation, and it becomes a big headache. So, grant making foundations only seem to make a lot of sense when you're dealing with generational wealth and a family that wants to have that wants to kind of be create an endowment for like a university or a hospital or something like that, where they're going to give significant amounts of money over a specific period of time, and they want to be fairly involved with the charity that will implement those gifts down the road. There's also what's called an operating foundation, which instead of just making grants, it actually is the one doing the work. Think of things like, I mean, like a hospital, for example, is an operating foundation, or it has an operating foundation component to it. The Red Cross, for example, is an operating foundation. They're doing the work. That's kind of how foundations operate. And foundation, we do have a couple of clients who have foundations that are operating foundations, but it's because they wanted to be engaged in the actual day-to-day charitable work. Most of the clients that we see just aren't there yet. They have this kind of enlightened worldview, and they want to make the world a better place through their wealth. But you know what? They're really good at making money. They're good at growing wealth, and so they want to share that wealth with others through charitable giving, but they're not wired to do the work of philanthropy. And so that's why often our clients will do a donor advised fund or one of these charitable trust structures, which hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about next.
Yeah, and we will definitely make sure we save time, because I know that's a big part of what we do, and a big part of what we're seeing in the future of kind of advanced planning. And we went into about it a little bit in the last slide of who is giving and why they're giving. And I feel like the average family, and I'm not talking about the ultra wealthy or even maybe like the high net worth, the average family, in my experience, does that. I'm going to give some money at the end of the year. I'm going to give to my favorite charity, or I'm going to go to a gala and buy something at the auction and give a little money. And then we have kind of the traditional wealth and the crypto wealth. And one thing that I wanted to make sure we got across here, Matt, as I've learned, being a part of and working with Bespoke, is there's this stereotype that all the crypto wealthy people are young, risk takers, just YOLOing into every crypto asset they see, or something like that, or they're just hardcore Bitcoin maximalists back from 2010. And I wanted you to talk about like some of the clients that we have that are don't fit those stereotypes, because I think some of the advisors that might be watching this can utilize that and go, okay, maybe it's time to ask some of my clients about crypto, because they might be, I don't want to say hiding something, but they just might not be telling me about it. And that's going to be a great place, something talking about charitable giving is, I think, going to be a great place to kind of bring that out if they've bought some Bitcoin or they bought some ETH quite a while ago and have a low basis, because that fits really nicely into being philanthropic and charitable giving.
For sure. Yeah, I'll tell you, Adam, it's a really great point because the the more I was kind of going along in practice with in business with serving these clients, I've been stunned at how diverse the demographic is. We've got clients who are in their mid 80s. The husband was mining Bitcoin in 2010, and they mine big stacks. I mean, he is a retired, I mean, should be no surprise, he's a retired engineering professor from MIT. We colloquially refer to him as Satoshi inside the company because he's like, he's one of the earliest Bitcoiners that we've worked with. He was a miner, he's a tech guy, and he's in his mid 80s. His wife, same thing. Wife is also a retired professor from, I think she's from Berkeley, perhaps. So they were, these, they just found themselves sitting on a mountain of Bitcoin that they don't need wealth. They don't want, I mean, it's like, what are we going to do with this, and we don't want to spoil our kids with it. The kids don't understand Bitcoin. The kids think this is just dumb. And mom and dad, first of all, got into it because they appreciated the software, they appreciated the code, they appreciated the kind of the beauty of the decentralized blockchain, and started mining just to create more resiliency to the network. And as a result, they have a whole bunch of probably zero basis Bitcoin from a capital gains tax perspective. So these are people in their 80s. The oldest person that I've spoken with that had Bitcoin was in his early 90s, which blew me away. And a lot of those clients, their kids who are in their 60s or 50s, they don't get Bitcoin. They don't, it's like, it's just completely doesn't make any sense to them. Other clients are in their 50s, like me. They've got, young adult kids, and they've probably kind of started to think about how do we transition this unusual asset. Especially, I don't see this as much in the kind of in the more diverse crypto world, but in the Bitcoin world, um, it's been my experience at least that those clients are very long the asset. They really think that Bitcoin itself, aside from all of its other utilities, is a long-term store of value asset. And they don't want to sell it if they don't have to sell it. They don't plan on getting out of it really kind of ever. And it's going to become part of the bedrock of the family's wealth into the future. Now, that's not to say that they're all just like super hardcore maxis. They just say, look, Bitcoin is money and crypto has other services. I mean, it creates the rails for decentralized finance. It is, it serves sometimes as tokenized venture capital. One of the things that I'm starting to really zero in on is this idea of tokenized digital identity, especially in this world where we wake up this morning and realize that the social security numbers and personal information of every American has now apparently been leaked out onto the dark web. In a world where we have tokenized digital identity that's secured on the blockchain and we have sovereignty over our identity, we don't have those kinds of concerns. And so our clients, even our Bitcoiners, often have an appreciation for the world of crypto beyond Bitcoin. They just see it with kind of a more nuanced perspective. And even the people who did YOLO into Bitcoin, one of our early Bitcoiners YOLO'd early, spent their last 10,000 bucks on Bitcoin back in 2011, and that matured very nicely, as you might imagine. And back then, they were just in their 20s. Well, now they're well into their 30s, and they've got a family, and it's like, holy cow, this this has created some surprising wealth and some interesting challenges that I need to think about. And so they kind of have a more mature, kind of evolved worldview around their wealth. And yeah, a lot of times they get into philanthropy.
All right. Well, Matt, make sure we have time for the talk some of those advanced planning techniques, talking about some of those trusts that you were discussing. And I know that some of our clients, it's not always about tax efficiency, right? I mean, that's, obviously kind of sometimes where the conversation starts, but oftentimes, especially those that have become wealthy through Bitcoin and through crypto, have thoughts around privacy and asset protection. But I know you had some trust and some other planning techniques and strategies you wanted to talk about. So I'm just going to let you run and talk about some of those as it relates to what we've discussed before, especially the donor advised funds or the foundations or just some philanthropy or charitable giving. What are some of the advanced planning techniques that we're using?
Yeah. So thanks for teeing that up. There's a couple of different ways I want to go on this. And this hopefully will generate some other questions and maybe a dialogue on Twitter or elsewhere. But kind of at the base level, clients that we see that have developed a significant amount of wealth in a fairly short period of time realize that all of the relationships that they grew up with have now changed. Whether it's within their family, whether it's in their communities, it's just different because they used to be just an ordinary person and now they're ultra high net worth. And there's a lot of, and a lot of these clients that, again, the ones that we see are very modest about that. And they don't want the whole world to know that all of a sudden they're worth tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of wealth, because a decade ago that wasn't the case. In fact, 5 years ago, that wasn't the case for a lot of these clients. And so helping them structure their affairs in ways that ensure a level of privacy so they can enjoy their wealth discreetly, yeah, tax efficiently for sure, but how can they just, when they want to buy real estate, for example, first of all, can we help them find tax efficient ways to exit a highly appreciated asset? And then when they want to buy something else, how can they do that in a way that is highly private so they don't just accidentally dox themselves by going and buying a beautiful home somewhere in their name, or even in a trust that ties back to them, or even in an LLC if they're the ones that control the LLC. And so a lot of what we'll do is kind of help clients design multiple layers of strategies that will provide not just tax efficiency, but also a filter for privacy and a lot of asset protection. Because these clients who have become suddenly wealthy and sometimes fabulously wealthy, and if they've done it in a conspicuous way, they can very well find themselves the center of some unwanted attention and potentially have people pursue them for their wealth. They may also be successful founders of other projects, and if that project goes off the rails for whatever reason and they end up getting sued, they want to find ways to, hopefully before that happens, have some insulation around their wealth. In the charitable space, because a lot of what we're talking about here is philanthropy driven, aside from just the outright gift to charities, and aside from the donor advised funds that we've talked about, and aside from the gifts to family foundations, all of those things are kind of in each case, it's like, well, we want to give an asset now, and we're just letting go of it. It's a gift that we're just completely giving away. There are a couple of different charitable trusts that our advisors who are listening should at least have on their radar. And these trusts they're referred to as charitable split interest gifts. And they're referred to as split interest gifts because the interest that you give to the trust is split or divided between a charitable interest and a non-charitable interest. And this kind of gift can be really effective when you're looking to maybe give some away, but not give it all away and still have some charitable advantages. So the first one I want to talk about is what's called a charitable lead trust. A charitable lead trust, again, is a form of split interest gift where the donor establishes a specific type of irrevocable trust that then pays an annuity, fixed dollar amount to qualifying charities, which could be your donor advised fund, could be a family foundation, or it could be some other qualifying charity, but it pays a fixed dollar amount for a specific number of years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. And then at the end of that charitable annuity period, anything that is left inside that trust passes gift tax free to the beneficiaries, to what's called the remainder beneficiaries. So for example, and here's the juice. The donor, depending on how this trust is set up, the donor can take an upfront tax deduction for the full value going into this charitable lead trust, and it pays to this charitable beneficiary for a term of years. But if the value of the assets given to the charitable lead trust continues to grow and grow and grow over time, at the end of that charitable lead annuity period, whatever's left could pass into continuing protected trusts for the benefit of the children of the donor, and that's not a gift taxable gift. So for people who have, they want to be philanthropic, they want to give some wealth to charity, but they also want to say, look, I don't want to give this all to charity. Maybe I want to put some Bitcoin in a charitable lead trust, take the value of the deduction now for my 2024 tax year, and then pay out to my chosen charity, sell Bitcoin incrementally through this charitable lead trust. Well, those sales are not often taxable events. Kind of depends on how the trust is structured. But then if the trust has anything remaining, to the extent it has value left, that remainder is now in a protected trust for the benefit of the donor's beneficiaries, their kids, their grandkids, their nieces, nephews, whatever it is. So you can endow family education, you can endow family wealth, and get your upfront deduction through something like a charitable lead trust. The inverse of the charitable lead trust is called a charitable remainder. And this is a really elegant strategy for people who say, well, look, I've got low basis Bitcoin, I've got low basis ETH, I was part of the pre-mine, or I was a founder of some successful tokenized project or whatever. And, I want to give some of this away to charity, but, I'm not ready to give it all to charity right now. But if I sell it, I'm going to have a massive capital gains tax hit. Well, what can I do? Well, a charitable remainder trust allows, again, it's the inverse of the charitable lead, which means that I could give low basis, highly appreciated assets, whether it's stock, crypto, whatever, to this charitable remainder trust. And then if the market moons on me and now it continues to accelerate in value, and I say, now we sell, the sale that takes place inside the charitable remainder trust is not a capital gains taxable event at that time, because the trust itself is a charitable trust. But it's only a charitable remainder. It's not a charitable lead. Who has the lead interest? It might be the donor who says, you know what, I want to take an annuity. Depending on my age, it could be up to 20 years. It might be for my life plus my spouse's life. But I get an income stream off of that charitable remainder trust. And only at the end of my income stream will the charity get the remainder. And so it allows somebody to make a gift of property, crypto in this case, that is highly appreciated, sell it in a capital gains tax deferred environment, and then instead of recognizing all the capital gains tax in the year of the sale, they only recognize that tax incrementally over the term of their retained annuity inside the trust. But they get a deduction for the year in which they establish the charitable remainder trust. And it takes a lot of modeling and a lot of mathing to kind of figure out how to structure these things, the right types of deductions. But just to kind of do a quick recap for the advisors here, in the world of charitable planning that you need to be thinking about with your clients, especially as we're getting towards the end of the tax year. Outright gifts, easy peasy. Donor advised funds, massive opportunity, especially for people who want to donate appreciated property, like we've talked about, whether it's crypto through something like endowment, whether it's something that's a much bigger stack through an advisor managed donor advised fund, whether it's just a donor advised fund at your local community foundation. Those are some of the lowest hanging fruit, but you should also have in mind these more advanced strategies that will say, okay, well, if we have significant wealth, how does this fit into the family's overall picture? Do we just want to give it all to charity now? Or do we want to give a piece to charity, take a deduction for that piece, and then retain some of the economic benefit through a charitable remainder trust? Or do we want to say, I want to give money to charity for a while, but then at the end of that period, I want that to pass to my beneficiaries, my kids, and perhaps through a charitable lead trust. So there's a lot that goes into this type of stuff. And the way we see these conversations through Bespoke as the family office strategic thinkers and strategic advisors is helping them think, okay, look, don't just sell your Bitcoin, don't just sell your crypto. Think through the implications of your choices. Think through how you can enhance your privacy, enhance your family legacy, enhance this sense of asset protection around your family wealth. And so that's kind of how I'd kind of end with this.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, Matt, like from the beginning, where we started talking about advanced planning. It's where philanthropy and where charitable giving fits in, and where it can fit in for an advisor working with clients is, as you talked about, excuse me, someone might want to, purchase a home, in which case we, at Bespoke, we're trying to figure out the ways that they can purchase a home and not have it be tied directly to their name, where everyone knows that's where this particular crypto wealthy person lives. But you do something like buy a home and they go, well, I got to sell a bunch of my Bitcoin to do it. And, because we all know bank isn't lending them money necessarily against their Bitcoin, right? So I got to sell a bunch of my Bitcoin. I'm going to have a taxable event. But as the advisor, you can go, well, we can also move some of your Bitcoin, move some of your appreciated assets into some sort of charitable giving entity, whether that's a trust or whether that's a donor advised fund, or however you want to do it, to offset some of those gains you're going to have to pay taxes on. So that's part of the advice there. And then based on your family, based on what you want, we're going to figure out the best ways to actually get your money to charity. Is that going to be through just outright giving, or a donor advised fund, or a foundation, charitable remainder, charitable lead trust? And that's where you as the advisor get to really talk to the clients about, why is this important to you, other than the tax benefit, which is great, but why is this important? Do you want your charity of choice to get all the money now? Do you want them to get it in an annuity stream? Do you want to wait and choose which charities, which organizations, foundations are going to get your money later? And that's where, as the advisor, understanding some of this kind of advanced planning can fit in really well, because now you get to have conversations that are not just, what stocks are we going to put your money in? Right. It's very much more of, let's talk about you and your family and what is important to you. As you and I both say, sometimes it's passing down the values as well as the value. And part of the values you can be passed down. I mean, I have a young daughter, you have older kids, but part of what you want to pass down is, if we've attained some level of wealth, we're going to help out the world around us. Yes, we want to do it in a very tax efficient way, but overall, it's the ethos of I want to make this organization or this particular thing better. And yes, I'm going to get a tax benefit for it, but I'm also going to do it in a way that's good for the organization. It's good for me, and it fits with what our family wants to do, rather than that last minute, December 31st, I'm just going to write someone a check so that I can get my tax deduction, right? This is where the advisor part fits in, more
Totally.
so than like the do-it-yourselfers.
Totally. And clients, and at least in my experience, Adam, clients want to have these conversations because you know what? Their advisors are usually not asking them these questions. I can tell you from personal experience, most of their lawyers are not asking these questions. Their CPAs are probably not asking these questions. The financial advisors really have a special relationship very often with the clients because they often will speak to the client more frequently, hopefully, than their lawyer will. But clients want to know that this matters. I mean, I think especially you and I are a wee bit older than a lot of the folks that we get a chance to work with. I can, certainly speaking for myself, there is a point where you start to think about what's it all about? What is the legacy that we'll leave behind and how will we be remembered? And the people that will remember us most clearly are the kids, if we've got kids, or our spouse or our partner or our family members or our friends. The people who are closest to us are going to be the ones who remember us. How are they going to remember us? Are they going to remember us as the people who are only chasing beta and only chasing alpha? And were we only just watching number go up for its own sake, just to collect trinkets? Or did we really spend our time and engage and think through what is it all about? What's it about for my family? What's it about for the community that I have benefited from, whether it's a faith community or whether it's just a social community or a geographic community, whatever? It's like, what's it all about? At least in my experience, clients want to be asked those questions because and I think very few advisors go there because it's kind of uncomfortable. It's slower, but yet, sometimes it's just worth slowing down and having those conversations, because once you have those conversations with clients and once they have shared that with you, here's the other side of that. They're never going anywhere else because you know them more deeply than anyone has ever gotten to know them. And if you miss a beta move, or if you miss an alpha move on some part of their portfolio, that's fine. That happens to everybody. But if you've taken the extra step and you've gotten to know them, what is it all about for them? What is purpose beyond the balance sheet? Those clients will never leave you. That's
And on top of that,
spoken from almost
going to
30
tell their
years of doing
friends.
this.
Yeah, they're definitely going to tell their friends about it too, which are going to be more clients, right? And because, look, I mean, some of this is they have the ethos, I want to make the world better, but like people who have some level of wealth also want to, they do sometimes like to flex a little bit, and the flex sometime is, I did this charitable remainder trust or this charitable lead trust, and I was able to give a large portion. And by the way, I didn't have to pay all this capital gains tax. Like, they want to brag about that a little bit, right? There's a little bit of a flex. There's a little bit of flex when you go to some gala and you get to write a big check and you get to go, this isn't from me. This is from my donor advised fund.
It's
This
for
is
the
from my
kids,
charitable
it's for the
foundation.
people.
Go talk to my lawyer or my CPA about it, right? And I think they want to be able to do that. So this gets into, I can do the right thing for my clients. I can ask them questions no one else is asking. And then hopefully I know these techniques, or I know I can call Matt and ask more about these techniques. Sorry, Matt, I'm putting you out there to teach more people about it, but that's what we do like to do. But I want to learn more. So not only am I asking and getting ingrained with the family and their ethos, but now I can actually, I can, from a numbers perspective, utilize those techniques, get them what they want, ask those questions, and then they're going to send their wealthy friends they sit with at the gala table and have a few too many drinks and start bragging about their donor advised fund or foundation, or how they're not paying any capital gains tax while they're writing money to their very favorite organization, and it all works out. And being the
Yeah, and
advisor
to your
moves
point,
beyond.
they're going to talk about the advisor who set that up for them.
Exactly. And being being able to kind of brag about that, I think that's what they want. And that's what moves beyond, as you said, number go up. It moves beyond just, I'm helping my clients invest in these ETFs, which we all know all own the same 5 stocks in them anyway. I've got an advisor now that's moving past that, and here's their number, here's their name, go check it out. And that's where I think everything that you and I have talked about for the last about an hour starts with, people know that they get a tax deduction for giving money to charity. Your job as the advisor is to help those wealthy clients, those clients that have some level of wealth, make it in a tax efficient way, makes it in a way that fits with their ethos, and ask them those questions such that they're kind of excited to talk about it at the dinner table around the holiday time every year. Where's our money going to go? What are our favorite charities now? What did we see this year? And make it a part of the family and the values that get passed down.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
And if you've seen our Twitter handles here, you see our email addresses here. If anyone has more questions, especially about some of the more advanced strategies, I'm happy to answer them. But there's no one in the world better than Matt to help answer some of those. So I can field some of them, and then we can see if anyone needs any help from Matt and Bespoke.
Well, I just want to kind of close out by, again, thanking our sponsors, thanking our hosts for allowing us to share the podium today. It's been a great week of a lot of really great content and really great ideas being shared.
Thank you, Matt. And again, thank you, Endaoment, for letting us do this and for putting this on for this week and helping so many of these people with not only understanding crypto, but understanding how to use that wealth and use kind of the ethos of it to make the world better.